This is some of the stock that we've got for the Chinese market.
Mitchell Taylor's winery has been selling Australian wine since the 1960s.
It retails for approximately $1,000 a bottle.
And in the past 5 years, China has been his main focus.
That's the back label there with all the Chinese details.
But these bottles could now be 3 times as expensive because China has imposed new tariffs of up to 212% on Australian wine.
I was absolutely shocked. It really did hit me hard.
Since May, Australia has been caught in a trade dispute with China. It has hit not just the wine industry, but also coal, barley, lobster, and beef. Some economists say as much as 6% of Australia's GDP hangs in the balance.
It's an attack on free countries everywhere.
The bilateral trade dispute has gone global. China hawks and lawmakers from across the political spectrum and around the world are taking Australia's side. The White House National Security Council even tweeted that it would serve Australian wine at its holiday reception. Politicians are jumping on China's wine tariff to draw global attention to what they see as Beijing's bullying. And Australia's winemakers hope this new coalition can help save their industry.
It's a great initiative. The coalition of partners can come together and help us all put pressure on the Chinese regime.
The virus began in China, in Wuhan. That's, I think, well understood.
This statement is what sparked the dispute, when back in April, the Australian government called for an investigation into the origin of the coronavirus pandemic. Beijing, which has suggested that the virus came from outside China, dispelled the criticism.
澳大利亚方面提议的所谓独立调查，实际上是在搞政治操弄，干扰国际疫情防控合作，不得人心。
But this diplomatic tussle is about more than the virus. China has pointed out several grievances against Australia, like when it banned Chinese telecom firm Huawei from its 5G network, because it said it posed a national security threat, even though Huawei said it has operated safely in the country. And when Australia condemned China's controversial national security law in Hong Kong, which Beijing said is a domestic matter. So in May, China slapped tariffs of up to 80% on barley, followed by levies on other goods. Timber exports were also stopped at Chinese customs. For entrepreneurs like Mitchell Taylor, these tensions threaten their businesses, as they've bet big on China and invested to expand production by buying new land and upgrading facilities.
Our current sales into the Chinese market are about 10 to 15%. We've been explaining our wines and matching them with the very good Chinese cuisine.
Taylor says sales in China have doubled over the past 4 years, as drinking wine became a status symbol for the Chinese middle class. To appeal to more Chinese drinkers, Taylor adapted his products.
The Chinese customers, they're fascinated with technology. We have a microchip here. It is a great security seal.
Taylor also uses gold on labels, which is perceived as a lucky color in China. He created heavy wooden boxes that he said Chinese customers associate with exclusivity. And the company even produced wines that Taylor says Chinese consumers like to have with hot pot. Taylor's isn't the only winery in Australia to have bet big on China. Exports there have tripled in the past 5 years to hit $907 million in 2019. Australia's economy as a whole has come to rely on China, sending a third of its exports to the mainland.
Australia has not had an economic recession in about 2 decades, and much of that is thanks to China's rise.
Vicky Xu is an analyst who's been studying Australia's increasingly tense relationship with China. Despite the closer economic relationship between both countries, Australia's government has been raising its voice on political issues sensitive to Beijing.
People in the business community are very anxious here in Australia. The current administration is speaking out assertively on issues like human rights. But the question is, can we really stand up for our values despite economic losses?
We will not be bullied.
This trade dispute, especially China's wine tariff, has caught the attention of a new alliance of more than 100 lawmakers from more than a dozen countries. They say trade policies shouldn't be used as a political tool.
We are asking you all to join us in standing against Xi Jinping's authoritarian bullying.
By drinking a bottle or two of Australian wine.
As trade disputes multiply in a globalized economy, Vicky Xu says countries that share political values could increasingly rely on each other's market.
Everyone knows they will have help and they will have backup when they're also being punished by Beijing for perceived indiscretion.
We really do appreciate our allies and friends coming together. We've got an opportunity now to relaunch in the US market, the UK and in Canada.
But because consumers there are different from the Chinese, Taylor is tweaking the marketing around his lineup of more than 50 bottles.
The labels in Chinese, we'll have to rip them off, we'll have to rebottle it and then repackage it.
For the US market, Taylor is using floral labels to appeal to young urban consumers and will start exporting vegan wine to cities like New York and Los Angeles. And for the long term, he's planting more Shiraz and Grenache, which are growing in popularity in the West. Still, it'll be difficult to make up for lost business. Some Australia-based foreign policy analysts hope with the incoming Biden administration, like-minded countries could work together to confront China, as the president-elect has said that he will seek to strengthen global alliances.
The idea that we're going to be able to deal with China's rogue behavior when we make up 25% of the world's economy without bringing in the other 40% of our allies is not realistic.
Meanwhile, China says it's committed to free trade and that its tariff measures are in line with international customary practices, and that it's now up to Australia to repair the relationship. Taylor knows he's closing out a tough 2020 without the same access to the China market, but he says he's learned a lesson for next year.
This whole incident has really taught us not to get too focused on one customer. You've just got to diversify and do that.